Starting this podcast was an unexpected step of obedience of something that God has called me to do. Through this podcast, I will be interviewing ordinary people who have seen and experienced God move in extraordinary ways throughout their lives. I pray that this will build your faith and encourage you to testify of God's goodness in your everyday lives. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Testify of God's Goodness podcast. I have here with us Kierstin Howard, so I'm really excited for you to get to share your testimony with our listeners. We were just talking before, it's incredible how God can radically transform our lives. And it's funny, the same day that Jocelyn, Judy, her life was radically changed, that was the same day for you as well. So,
yes.
And I've just seen you be more bold in your faith and share your faith, not only on social media, but then you were just telling me beforehand how much you've been able to and how God's opened the doors and you've walked through in obedience and did it nervous at times, just sharing your faith. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get into all that. Okay, so tell me about yourself, like your work or callings in life, your family, and then anything else that you'd like to share.
All right, so I am married. My husband, Tyler, we've been married almost 9 years. I have 4 kids. Great story behind all of those as well. That's one of the things I want to talk about too, how each of their stories is just so different of how they came about in my life and at times and everything that went. I do work at Cape and Bridge Family Dentistry. Love it there. I have a great group of people to work with. Patients and everything are great. I'm just really just a simple gal, and I don't know, there's just so much simplicity in my life now, and I just really just grateful that God has come into my life now more than ever. I know he's always been there, but now I'm just really able to share it with everybody, and I'm just really excited about that.
Yes, I'm excited for you, and I'm proud of you for being willing to do this, because you were talking before, you were like, I kind of felt like I was supposed to, and then I reached out, and a lot of times when I reach out, people are like, I have to pray, or I'm not comfortable doing that, which is 100% okay. But it's just encouraging to me too when you're like, yep, I'm gonna do it. I'm excited about this. So yes. Tell the listeners your testimony. So your life before Christ, when you accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior, and then the transformation that came from that.
All right. So basically I grew up in church. Went my entire life. Terracotta Church of the Brethren is where I went till I want to say about 12 or 13. And then we had started going to, it was Mountain View Assembly of God at the time, and went there for a while, and that's actually where I was first baptized when I was a teenager. So of course I can speak on, I knew God and I knew things. I definitely grew up with godly family and all of that, so I knew all of those type of things, but I definitely didn't realize what it actually meant then. So of course, we hit the teenage years, and we had stopped going to church, and I know a lot of people are like, well, church isn't everything and stuff like that, but now that I've seen myself out of church, and then just even recently going back to church, and so that's a big thing.
But the Bible talks about that, the importance in Hebrew. They say don't neglect to meet together, as some have the habit of doing. So people are like, oh, you don't need that, but that goes against kind of what the Bible's saying too.
Yeah. So I definitely will say, it isn't everything, but it has definitely been a great part to grow stronger in your faith, and 100%. to have people around you that have the same beliefs and want to help you be better and everything. So
for sure.
I really love that. But so basically the teenage years, they were challenging for me. I kind of just went, I guess, against my faith, and against, I just didn't put that as my main priority. And a lot of things happened in that time. I was one that was getting ready to graduate high school and got pregnant with my daughter, of course, out of wedlock and everything, you know, with that. And in that time, you're just trying to, you know, just go with life and figure out what you're going to do after that. And I wasn't in the greatest place at the time with everything, but God was always with me because I always made a way through. I always got to the next step. I, you know, went through a lot of trials and tribulations. I could talk days on those. But that's definitely, having my first daughter, Kylie, it definitely brought something out in me that I knew that I wasn't just there to just be there, but it kind of just took me a little while to figure that out. And so really that brings me to, I guess, years later and everything. I have 4 children, so she was my first, you know. Later down the road, I get with my husband and we just go through our own kind of trials and tribulations. And he has a son, Jaden, who is only a year younger than my daughter, Kylie. And, you know, at the time you're young and you already have a child and you know, get with somebody with a child. And like I said, we had our own trials and tribulations. We were young. We made a lot of dumb decisions, did stupid stuff. But by the grace of God, I will share real quick his kind of testimony. We were together about a year, and I guess I was more, quote unquote, better off. He was kind of struggling a little bit, and then God was like, I'm gonna bless you all with a child now. And of course, again, out of wedlock at the time, I know, again, didn't go about things, you know, the way they should have been, but it all kind of came together and had a plan.
Babies are always a blessing, regardless.
It really was.
I mean, I understand, like,
It was, and it just, I was like, okay, now I really need to get my life together. Like, I'm about to have 2 children, and technically 3 if, you know, things go. And it was a lot to take on at, you know, I wasn't even 20 yet. I was just really, there was just a lot, and I just had to make decisions, and I had to go, and I did have support, but I was trying to be independent. I was trying not to, you know, I was trying to do everything on my own and whatnot. And at the time too, I've always believed in God, always had my faith, but I never knew how much I needed Him, how much I needed to reach out to Him, because I know He was always there, but I just didn't know how important at the time it was to want to reach out and pray and everything. So long story short, he had his sister and her husband at the time. They got with him. He ended up moving in with them, and never really super shared this, but they really helped him change his life. They got him into church. They would go on every Sunday. And at this time, you know, we weren't living together. He was with them. I was still at home. But I knew I really wanted things to work out. I wanted, you know, we were about to have a baby together. You know, we were just, you know, we were just preparing for bigger things now, and we had to get ready for all that. And if he wouldn't have went with them, if he wouldn't have, you know, really looked into God at that time to turn his life around, things could be different. But that was one of the greatest things. He did go and he did all that, and excuse me, he made a complete change, and it kind of only went up from there. Like we just made a plan together, and we were like, okay, now we need to focus on what we're going to do for these kids, because we want to give them the best life. So what are we going to do now? And we ended up getting our first apartment together, and just things kind of just went on from there. Again, he just stayed strong in faith, and I remember him getting me to go to church with him, and then at the times too, I just remember sometimes him wanting me to go, and then I'd be like, no, I'm just tired, like I don't want to go, and I wouldn't follow as much as I should have, and then we did kind of fall off that and got out, stopped going and everything, but we ended up having our daughter, and then a little bit down the road, we just kept doing everything we needed to do, and that brought us to ultimately ending up getting full custody of his son. So therefore we were still young. Now we had 3 children. We were just trying to just make it. We were just trying to figure out what we were going to do to give them the best lives that we possibly could. And so from there, we really, again, just tried to navigate that. It was difficult because it's not only hard to take care of yourself, but again, you have these children who you just want to give the best life. You want to do everything you can to make everything great for them. For sure. And Kylie, my oldest daughter, her whole dad situation, that has just been, not to talk too much on it, but that has just been a struggle. It was for a long time, especially in her young life. So I feel like I had to overcompensate a lot and try to do a lot more than I guess I felt I should have at times. But again, it kind of only made us stronger. It only made me realize what more I had to do. And then again, with gaining a son at the time who, again, I was young. I was like, oh my gosh, another child. Like, it was just really overwhelming. And I don't think I realized how overwhelming it was until you really get into it. And then you're working and you're, trying to take care of everything. And then I ended up deciding to do online classes, which that was one of the best things I could have done too. But again, I was young. I was working 6 days a week at the time, waitressing, and I was still coming home to 3 kids, and I made it through college somehow and ended up, getting my associate's degree, which landed me my job, which I've been at almost 10 years now, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, because God really knew, he was like, you've done this great job, because I loved doing that and meeting all the people I did, but he was like, I know there's bigger and better things, and I've truly been blessed, and I really just have to speak on that really quick. They allow me to do so many things for my kids, with my kids, and I never have to stress over that. So that was a godsend. That truly was. And then I guess to kind of move on down the road with my last baby, he was my 2020 baby, so he's only 5, but that one was a struggle. We were married, and we were kind of like, okay, 3's enough, but like, are we really? And we really, for the longest time, you would have asked me, I would have been like, no, I'm definitely done having kids. Like, I'm tapped out. And I probably did say that to a lot of people, at the time. But I struggled for a couple years, trying to get pregnant, and I was like, wow, I so easily did this when, I shouldn't have. And now, we want this. So I don't really speak a lot on that either, but it really took a toll on me. And I think that's a lot of where kind of we'll talk in a little bit, I guess, about where it really sent me into. I never like to use the word depression, because I would always tell people, like, I'm not depressed. But again, you don't realize sometimes how things really affect you. And so really that was a struggle, but I do remember I prayed and I would cry out to God, and I would just be like, I know I've done wrong in the past, and I know I didn't have my kids the way, and I know we've had struggles with all of that, but I was like, but please, I know I'm supposed to have one more. Like, I just know I am. And I did. I prayed and prayed and I cried, and finally he blessed me with our last baby. And that whole pregnancy was a struggle in itself. So God was like, okay, I'm going to give you this, but I'm going to test you through this, because again, it was right when COVID hit. So in my mind, I was, excited to do all these things. Yeah. Because, we were so much better off than we were, when we were younger and didn't have all this, that, and the other. But COVID hit, and we couldn't do
COVID too.
We couldn't do all that. And then I wasn't allowed to have my husband with me to a lot of that. And I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to do all this alone. Yeah. I was really, really not about that. But I was like, okay, no, I prayed for this. I wanted this. It was bigger than that. So made it through all of that. And honestly, again, his timing was just right, because even though I didn't think that at the time, everything that came about it, what we were able to do in that time with our house, with the kids and everything, it worked out. And I guess to jump back a little bit too, real quick, my son Jaden, that story in itself is a big one too. Because I know most people know, but a lot of people still to this day don't know, that I did adopt him years back, because he is Tyler's son. But I never thought that was, I never thought that my life was going to pan out and these stories with my kids would be how they were. Yeah. And that was one of my biggest accomplishments in life, was to be able to do that. Because family isn't just blood. I know that's a thing.
I thought he was your son, so
Yeah. No. And
he is your son.
Yeah. Well, yes.
He was your biological.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing, because I never want to put that out there. Like, I think I may have posted back on, in Facebook, when we actually got to go through with the adoption. Awesome. Yeah. But I just knew then too, there was just something, I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to be his mom. Yeah. So, and again, it took a couple years, and it took, a lot. I was young, and we were getting used to everything, but I definitely know now that, I was supposed to be his mom. Like he is my child that has the emotions like I do, and awesome. And he talks to people like I do, and I'm just like, wow, like I'm supposed to lead him, I'm supposed to guide him in this, and we're so much alike in those ways. And so cool. And I love that. So that was just a little bit of my kids' story. So we move on to the main testimony, I guess. In August 10th of 2025, it was Kayla Gabbard. She had come, and it was the revival weekend. I
need to reach out and see if she'd ever, next time she's here, what to share on the podcast.
That would be amazing.
Hear more of her story.
I love hearing her reels and and I still keep up with all of her stuff. And I guess my dad was the main one who had been following her on Facebook, and he was like, you know what? I want to rededicate my life. He's like, I want to go get baptized again. And he kind of had said this, month or two before. And, it was just a thing. We were like, yeah, that'll be awesome. We'll definitely be there to support you. It didn't really hit me, honestly, until a day or two before we were actually going to go and support him. My husband and I were like, oh, what if we do that? What if we go and, rededicate our lives and everything, but just, again, not even knowing the impact that it could possibly have. And we get to that morning, and we had stuff, our extra clothes packed and everything ready. And we were like, no, we don't need to go. It's early. Let's just not go. I'm not a morning person. A lot of people may know that, but we were just trying to talk ourselves out of it. And now I know that was definitely the devil coming in, trying to be like, no, don't go. Don't.
So I want to encourage you guys, because it is hard to get up on Sundays to go to church and all these things and get the kids ready. Believe me, we know, but do it anyways. Do it when you're not put together. Do it with all the craziness. Be there 10 minutes late. Like, it is okay. Just go, because you don't know how God's going to meet you in those ways.
Yeah, and that is so true. So we get up and we're like, you know what? All right, we're going. But we didn't take the extra clothes. We didn't take the towel. You know, we didn't take anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, we're just gonna go. We're gonna go there and support my dad, and you know, it'll just be a good day. So we get there, and it was just the feeling you got when you pulled in. It was almost overwhelming to me, a little bit, because I had just been going through so much anxiety for the past few years, and granted, I could be around people, but sometimes it just got the best of me, and I was like, oh my gosh, are we really gonna go do this? But we did. We went out and got in the line, and then she comes out, and Pastor Elwood came out, and you know, just started talking to everybody, praying over everybody, getting ready to, you know, start the day of baptisms again. And I just felt all sorts of emotions. It was a beautiful day, and I was like, okay, we're kind of close up front in the line too, and I'm just like, okay, you know, we're gonna go see my dad do this. Like, this is gonna be great. You know, because again, we'd already talked ourselves out of it. We're like, we're here, but we don't need to do anything. We're fine. So we get up there, and it's finally my dad's turn, and me and my husband and my kids and my sister was actually there, and we had some family and friends, you know, that were there already helping out and doing all this stuff. But my dad goes down, and he goes to talk to one of them in the water before they actually took him over to do the baptism. And she had just told my dad, I guess, when he had gotten in the water, she was like, you're not going to do this alone. And we're like, what? Because none of us heard this at the time, but my dad comes out, and he's like, is anybody gonna, you know, does anybody want to come with me right now? And we're just kind of like all stunned, and we're just like, what? And then I just knew in that moment, I'm like, we have to go. And I was ready. I was like, all right, I'm in it. Let's do it. My husband was like, let's go. Let's do it. My kids, they wanted to go. My three oldest.
Oh my gosh, I have chills. Like, the fact that the Holy Spirit, like, she has that close of a relationship with the Lord to, like, understand from the Holy Spirit, like, just to hear that and know that he wasn't going to do that alone is incredible.
Oh yeah, that was that. And again, right at that time, I'm not even thinking about it like that. But now that I have grown closer and I've really tried to understand more, I'm like, wow, she was really serious. Like, that was him talking to her. That was really going through her, being like, no, you're not going alone. Like, your family's coming with you.
Yeah.
And so then we all just jump in and go in, and they still keep us down there, and they're praying over all of us, and they really talk to us each individually, like in the group.
Great. Yeah.
And that's another thing, when they start talking to everybody, like individually, but again, we're all there and we're all hearing the things that she was saying to each person. There is no way they knew. Like, there's no way that we could have, you know, set them up to know things to say. Like, that was truly from God, and I knew that in that very moment.
That's incredible.
It was, because, and then, you know, when they get to me, and then they just say the things for me, and it really just hit on what I had been struggling with. Like, I really let anxiety and depression get me down for a long time. I was pretty good at, you know, hiding it, you know.
Like a lot of people are,
because you can post everything happy on Facebook, and you can be great at your job, and you can, you know, be out in public at sporting events and talk to people and do things, but deep down, like, if you're struggling with something, like, you know, and then that's just so, I couldn't get over that.
Yeah, and if you're struggling with that, like, do not keep it to yourself. You don't have to act like you have it all together, because I've realized in life, once you're vulnerable enough to open up about what you're struggling with, so many people want to do the same. And, like, all of our struggles look different, but, like, it just takes somebody taking the step, humbling themselves, like swallowing their pride and say like, I am struggling. And that helps other people to come alongside you and help lift you up.
It does, and I didn't realize, that at the time. I was really just like, no, I've got to keep it all in. I'm a full-time employee. I'm a full-time mom of 4. I'm a wife. I just have so many things that I need to get through the day. So I was, I just put myself on the back burner like a lot of us moms do.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell everybody, don't be afraid to reach out. Just don't, because I just let myself go with it for so long, thinking that I was going to be able to fix it all on my own, and it wasn't happening. And that was a little portion of when we were in there, in the water. They ask you, what are you really wanting to, kind of accomplish out of this? Like, what are you struggling with that, you want God to help you with? And I had just remember telling them, I was just like, I just want this anxiety, I'm always sad and I'm always worrying. I just want all of that to go away. Like, there's not a day I can't pull myself out of it. And I wish that, I just want that to go away. And so they just, they pray over everybody, and they, went around to all of us, and they were like, okay, we're ready to go over here and do all this. And it was just an experience I'll never be able to forget. And which is great, because it was truly just something, again, that I wasn't going there expecting to happen. I didn't think that I was going to feel any type of different, like I really did feel everything they were saying, and, I did, but I didn't think afterwards, what was going to happen after that. And I'm just really, truly grateful that, it was all supposed to happen that way. Like, God was like, this is your time. I'm going to show you, what you've been missing out on. I know, he's like, I know you know who I am, but to actually truly have a relationship with God is so different than just, knowing who he is and all of that. So, we go over and we just go through this, amazing baptism of all of us, and we come out of the water, and I was feeling, you get this feeling when they bring you up, and you're like, oh, but it was really when I finally walked up on the hill, and I just felt such a peace. That's the word I kept using, and that's all I can say is I have never in my life felt more peaceful than I did when I walked out of that water. And I'm like, at that time too, I'm like, how is this real? Like, how is this possible? Like, no way. And I just kept thinking and being like, God, please don't let this peacefulness go away from me. Like, I've never felt better in my life. Like, it was just so humbling. It was like, wow, you really can, I can feel this peace that I hadn't felt in so long, because I was just trying to hide everything and trying not to, be open about everything. And I was like, okay, maybe this is where it begins. And that was one of the things they kind of told me, actually, in the water. I like to help everybody, and I like to fix everybody's problems, and I'm the one that people always come to for advice, and I'm like, sometimes I that's probably advice I should be taking myself, but here I am.
I'm like, this is for me too.
Here I am spewing it out to everybody else. And they told me in the water, they were like, I'm being told right now that you are to work on you, that you are to work on yourself. And that's one thing that really hit me. And when I was in the water right before I got baptized, like, how did they know, that my whole life I've just been doing so much for everybody else that I wasn't focusing on myself. And they were just like, no, you need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on getting closer to God, because the only way you are going to pull your family and pull everybody else closer to God is if you know him.
Yeah.
And if you start to, get in your Bible and read things, your kids are going to have questions for you. And that was basically like them just telling me, like, you need to prepare. Like, you are about to rededicate your life. You are about to feel new again, like the peace that I felt. But it was just like, it's not going to stop there. You have to go forward with it. And it was overwhelming at the time, but in a good way. And I was, kind of just confused too, like, where do I go from here? Like, I'm just supposed to, go tell everybody, oh, hey guys, I just got baptized. I feel like a new person. And, what do I do? How do I, explain to people that this is real and God is real. And if if you really, want things to happen, you have to pray and you have to get in your Bible and you have to start understanding more on a spiritual level than just like an everyday, because there's a lot of worldly things and everything that try to suck us in and really get most of us if we're not, trying to seek him. So
it's not only like having that head knowledge of like, yes, Jesus, like the Bible says even demons believe in Jesus. Like, it's not only to know about Jesus, but it is to make him Lord of your life. And I think it's really easy for people to come away from like a spiritual high like that, or a camp or this or that, where they're like on fire for the Lord, and then they just go back to living in the world and like being sucked in by all these different things. And then they get back in that depression, and they just feel that sense of peace just totally leaves them. But it's about like, you have to put an effort in your relationship. Think about your husband. If you only spent time with him for an hour a week, like just like we would going to church for an hour a week, like you wouldn't have a very good relationship with him. So like, God is there. He is willing to have that relationship with us, but also we have to take that step, because like, we're not like robots. We can make our own decisions, and he wants us to want that relationship with him. That is what we are created for. So it does take spending time in your word, learning about him, not just listening. You have to be careful in our world today. I was just telling the teens this the other night, because I've even had some of my college girls like bring me videos, and they're like, is this actually right? Because there are so many influencers out there, and I get it. I'm sharing the word like online because it is a great way to reach, like literally reach the world.
Oh yeah.
But like, I always pray everything that I say is biblically sound and honoring to God. And so I'm like, you spend time in your word for yourself, because if not, it's going to be really easy to hear something that sounds good and then take that and run with it when really it's false doctrine. Like in the Bible, it talks about like, as the day draws near, there's going to be more and more false teaching and false prophets and stuff. So just really be aware of that. And if you hear things that you're like, I'm not sure about, like, reach out to your pastor, reach out to somebody, reach out to me. And if I don't know, I will say I don't know, and I will do the research myself, or I'll reach out to my pastor, So don't take things at face value that might just sound good. Like, understand the word for itself, because it's really easy to be deceived in our world today.
It is. And I think that was, a big part of my story. Like, I've always believed in God. I always, knew that, but I had been a child when I was learning most of this. And, I know, some stories in the Bible, and I know this, but it truly took, being rebaptized, doing this, and really being on fire for God at the time and not letting that go. Like, I even remember like the first week or so, like even my husband or my kids, they would be like, Mom, like, all right, enough with the Jesus stuff. And I'm like, but no, I'm like, Jesus, this is it. And it was just because, I feel like he was just really hitting me hard with it, because he was like, no, you're not going back this time. Because, just to speak a little bit on this, like the whole anxiety and depression, like I feel like that is really a big thing in our world now.
100%,
and there is nothing wrong with reaching out to a doctor and
Yeah.
going to get help, because sometimes there are things chemically not
Yes.
going on. So I don't want to deter anybody from doing anything like that, because you know, that was the thing, though. For years, you know, nobody chopped it up to anything specific, but I did go to the doctor, and I was actually somewhat trying to work on myself, because there were just times where I just really didn't feel like okay. And, and, you know, I had a really good doctor for a while, and again, they just want to say, oh, well, you know, again, the whole depression thing, I hated that, because it just, I guess, made me just feel bad. Like, I don't want that. Like, don't tell me that's what it is. But it was just like, there were so many factors that were making me feel that way. So that's what they, you know, were chopping it up to. And, you know, my weight was something that I struggled with for a long time too. And I felt like, you know, when they would bring that up and, you know, things like that. And I think I honestly struggled a little bit with that, you know, trying to get pregnant with my son at the time too. And I think that kind of sent me into a spiral, because I knew that I like wanted to change, but I was just so lost and just so gone at that time. I didn't know how to get out of it. So I went on medication, and, you know, I was trying to stabilize, you know, how I felt, and I didn't want to feel sad all the time, to where, you know, I just didn't want to do certain things. And I, you know, it's kind of hard to get out of bed and put on a happy face. And, you know, I have a job where I have to be happy, and I have to greet people, and I have to talk to people. And, you know, and that's the thing. I get a lot of people that just come up to me and just start talking, and, you know, just telling me stories, and we'll just go on and on. And I would be, you know, that would be me. That would get me through everything, because I'm like, why, you know, I'm good. But then, you know, you go home, and there's just struggles again. Young parents, and, you know, just everyday life. And, you know, the kids getting older, and I would just really struggle with that. I would just, you know, with everything that happened in Kylie's life and Jaden's life, and I just felt like I just always had to overcompensate for everyone else, when really you know, I should have just been living through it all, you know, just making, you know, everything was working out, like everything's always been good. But just got to the point where one time I had to switch doctors, and I had just stopped taking the medication, and I broke down. And that was the first real time that I knew that it was actually working to help me, not necessarily numb me, but I was just so emotional, and I was just like, I can't be like this. Like, I don't want my kids to see me so sad and upset, because it's not them. It's just something with me. I just don't know, you know, I just didn't, you know, seek help to talk about things. And I've realized, you know, that's a big thing too. Being able to talk things out and not keeping everything inside. But, so I just broke down one day, and I cried, and I had to call the doctor's office I was going to, and I'm like, look, I haven't been on this medication for like a month, but I'm telling you right now, like, I'm so sad. Like, I was almost crying on the phone. I was like, I don't care who I have to see today, because I was kind of like particular. I only wanted to see certain people, and I was just like, I don't care. I need in. I just don't feel okay. And it kind of brings me to this, which I really didn't want to pinpoint too much on. Kind of gets me emotional, but going through all of this, there were times when I would be so, I guess, down and out. Like, I would cry, and I would just yell at God and be like, why me? Like, why are you putting me through all of this? Why am I crying in front of my kids when I should be happy? I had even got to a point, and I hate to even have to say it, because again, I don't think I would have ever done it, but I had wanted to not be here anymore. I don't know why I felt like that. It was just so much stuff. And I may have even, said it in front of my kids, which sounds awful, but I was just so down and so upset. Like, I just didn't want to be here anymore. And again, I don't think I would have ever gone through it or done anything like that, but
that's going to set somebody free, because I'm sure there's somebody listening that has been in that boat that hasn't wanted to admit it, and like, you're never too far gone. Like, you can get out of this. God can get you out of this. And
yeah, like, and even at that time, I wasn't even close with God like that, because I was questioning him. I thought he was, the one doing all this to me. Like, am I really that bad of a person? Like, what have I done? Why? Like, I know I've done, my fair share of stuff, but I, thought I was, doing better. I thought, life was good. Like, why do I feel like this? Again, you see me out and about, like, I would be happy. I could talk. I mean, yeah, I had my, my moments here and there, but nothing extreme to where people, would even have questioned that. But I got to a place where I just didn't think I could do it anymore. And I struggled. So I get back on the medication. They're like, here you go. I had taken it before, so I was like, okay. And it really helped kind of, get me to where I wasn't so upset all the time, and I wasn't worrying so much. It was still there, but I was able to figure things out, and I was able to cope. And again, I had 4 kids, so I was like, I have to get through, and I have to do this and everything. So I struggled with that for a while, and that brings me to wanting to say, after the baptism, I was on that medication still at the time, and I had just wanted to up it. And I was on, it was 50 milligrams. I was about to be on 100 milligrams of a prescription, and I really felt like I needed it. And 2 weeks after the baptism, I'm not saying I recommend anybody to do this either. I'm not a medical professional, but I stopped it. And I had a doctor's appointment, and I had kind of told her, I was like, look, I'm feeling really strong right now. And, and her being a godly woman as well, she was like, no, I understand where you're coming from, because I'm like, she is going to think I'm crazy. She is going to be like, oh, you got baptized and now you're free from this. Like, okay, but no, she really understood, but she was also awesome. Like, just make sure that, you're looking for any signs, whatever. And I am happy to say that since, like I said, 2 weeks after that, it was about September, I haven't been on that medication since.
Wow.
And I truly have not felt that I've needed it. And I have been upset since then. I've had to go through certain things, but I have not needed it at all.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And I know that's not going to work for everybody. Yes. And I'm not saying that is, it just happened, but that was part of my story. Like, I had went through that. I had truly needed help at the time. It really did help me. And that's why I don't want, anybody to think that they shouldn't do that, because it helped me.
Yes.
And then, it was just,
I would say pair that with a relationship with the Lord. So if you need medication, if you have that chemical imbalance, there's no shame in that. Go see a doctor, go talk to somebody, hopefully, and pray that God will help lead you to like even a Christian doctor that would help, point you to Christ, as well as like say, here's a medication that's going to help you right now and help you get out of this funk that you're in. So that's amazing that it took that relationship with God to truly set you free.
It did, because that's what it was. And that was, I was almost, like I said, I was nervous to go in and be like, yeah, by the way, I just want to stop this, because God has just really placed his hand on me and had been like, your time is over for that now.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's why he's having me speak on it today, because I don't want anybody to think that they can't get the help, because that was part of it. Like, I needed to be able to get the help so I could, so I could maintain. And then going through all of this, that was the thing. After the baptism, I didn't just stop.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, hey, cool, I got baptized and now everything's, I'm great. Like, I'm perfect now. That is not it. I am not perfect. Nobody is. No. Not at all. I I still, go through, certain things that everybody does. Like it's just the world we live in now and how we have to get through it. But the fact that I know if I stay strong in faith, if I, start reading my Bible more, like it has made so many more things it just made me realize that God really has his hand in everything.
He does.
And when you start, thinking, yes, that was God, and that wasn't just like, oh, coincidence or luck or, whatever, because that's not it. And that has been one of the main things that I have gotten out of all of that. Like,
and I think it's so important for Christians to talk about the hard stuff that they go through and say, like, even after I accepted Christ and he, like, transformed my life, and that is when you really made him, like, Lord of your life, like, you still have struggles, and I think we need to quit acting like we've got it together, because we don't. We're broken people. No. We need God. We mess up at times, and just being willing to say, like, hey, I messed up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that or said that or reacted in that way. Like, I have to apologize to my kids all the time and say, like, mommy should not have reacted like that. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, I've even told him before, like, I've been taking this to God to ask him to, like, help me through this, to hopefully show them, like, when they have, like, I have toddlers, like, they have really big emotions at times.
Oh,
so, like, I'm like, okay, this is how you take deep breaths. This is how, like, you can pray to God and say, God, help me with this. And that literally, like, as a 2-year-old, that maybe that's all he needs to say is, like, God, help me. And like, that's, and he truly can work through those things with us. Like, I'm sure especially when your kids were little, like them fighting and stuff like that. Like my 2 and 4-year-olds sometimes to get into it. And some mornings I'm like, okay, you both pray, like, God, help me be kind to my brother, help me be kind to my sister. And, like, I'm not kidding you. I really see a change when they take that time to do that. And plus, like, setting the mood, putting worship music on really lifts the mood too.
Yes.
So, life is hard. We're not perfect. Like, and I just want to encourage you guys to look for opportunities, to pray for opportunities for God to open up doors to share your testimony and to share what he's brought you from, what he's continuing to bring you from. Like, you don't have to wait until you're out of that to say, like, this is what I'm in. I know God is real. I know he's walking with me through this valley, but, like, I just have to keep leaning into him and trusting him and, like, praying that he'll help show me a little glimmer of hope each day.
Yeah. I will definitely say that praying a lot more than I ever have, every day, honestly, at this point, at some time, praying just, it really does get you through a lot too. And again, just realizing all these things that you can do. And, we started going back to church and got back in it. We've been trying to go every Sunday since about September, and just bringing my kids more into that now. And I love that, your kids are so young and you are, bringing all this stuff to them to help cope now, because that is one of the main things. I wish that I would have gotten my kids into church sooner, and I wish I would have been able to, speak about Jesus and God and just really speak about everything more, so they would have known more maybe at a younger age. But again, that wasn't my path. That wasn't how it was supposed to be.
You're doing it now. Like, it's never too late. Even if you have adult children and you're like, they're not even in my house anymore, that is okay. Like, pray over them. Like, I know my mom said, like, she still prays over us every single day, and I see the fruit of those prayers. Like, that helps so much in my life. I was not making great decisions, like, when I was, especially in, like, high school and college, I was not always honoring the Lord, like my early college years. And again, I know I had plenty of people praying for me, and I'm so thankful that, like, God did bring me out of that, because my life is a lot more abundant now. It's not easy. There's a lot of hard stuff that we go through, but it is a lot more abundant, like, being able to be obedient to him and follow his guidance and direction, like, through our lives. It's incredible what he can do. So it's never too late. And I don't want anybody to feel shame if you have not done those things or, like, taught your kids those things. Like, growing up, we didn't really, like, talk about those things a lot. And that is a plus about social media, because I feel like, there is a lot of encouragement in saying, like, this is a really good, like, the Jesus Storybook Bible. That's a great Bible for kids. And I've been reading it and I've been learning from it, because it's like, it's made simple, and it, even through the Old Testament, it points to Jesus, because it's crazy how much he is through the details of the Old Testament too.
Oh yeah. And that was kind of one of the things, like, again, growing up in church, like, I remember the stories and I remember, certain things, but then too, when you're older and you're able to take in the information differently, different than a child, like, it's just so different, because I do have teenagers, and sharing everything with them and them asking questions, like, yes, it's different, than my 5-year-old, how we're learning about Jesus now, but the fact that I can truly see that, just even bringing whatever I brought, to the table since then, I can see a difference in all of my kids. And there's just been little stories here and there that have truly just been like God saying, you're doing the right thing. You're at least, you're teaching them, what you need, that what I'm trying to, put through you to teach to them. And that brings me back to that day, the baptism. They had told me in the water, like, you are to work on you. You are to focus on you.
Yeah. Your relationship with God first above your kids.
And that has been truly just the thing, just really wanting to figure things out, and just how I'm even right now as an adult who had been, again, out of church and out of everything for a while, learning what I'm learning now, and then being able to, put that in my everyday life and put that to the lives of my children, like, just to see God work through me to get to them has just been amazing. And I just want to tell a little story really quick.
Yeah.
One that just really got me. I even posted a little thing on Facebook because it just really touched my heart that day, and I knew it was a God moment. My son had actually, he's 15, he had come to me on a Friday, and he had actually gotten in the car after a basketball practice, and he was trying to be like, hey mom, was trying to tell me, but we had a car full, we were getting ready to go and do stuff, and I'm just like, all right, tell me later, I was kind of blowing him off at the time, and I was like, we'll get to it. A couple hours go by, we get home, he's like, mom, he's like, I want to tell you what happened, I'm like, okay, what happened? Well, I was at practice, and I kind of just had a moment, and probably, wasn't the greatest, and at first I'm like, oh man, what did you do? What? Oh, great, But he said, no, he said, hear me out. And I said, okay. And he just says, I did. I had a moment, but I told him I needed to walk away. He goes to walk away. And then the next thing is what got me. He said, yeah, I walked away from the situation, but I walked away and then I prayed. And I was like, okay. I'm like, you did?
Amazing.
And he said, I did. He said, I went out. He said, I kind of put my hand up to the wall, and he said, and I just prayed. And he goes, Mom, I felt so much better after that.
That's amazing.
In an instant. He just, I'm like, wow, for him to be, be a teenager and be able to realize that in that moment, he was like, I know I did wrong. I may not have acted like, I should in that situation. And not just to walk away from it, to cool down, but to actually pray and be like, God, help me through this.
That's incredible. God, he's on the move in this next generation. I have never seen teens and young adults so on fire for the Lord, working with, I've worked with high schoolers a lot, and now college age. And they were really on fire for the Lord. And then this next group that came into our youth group, they're primarily middle schoolers. And I'm like, how's this gonna work? I'm way more comfortable with the high schoolers. You can talk, what I mean?
Oh yeah,
tell them how it is. And we know, they have serious struggles in their life, and they see the brokenness of the world so much. But I was like, how's this gonna work with middle schoolers? They're just awesome. They're so on fire for the Lord. Our very first time meeting, and I may have shared this before, but our first time meeting as a youth group, this has been a few months ago. We were talking about like, how can you be bold outside the four walls of this church? It's easy to share your faith and talk about God when you're around other believers, but like, are you going to do it when you're in your school? Are you going to do it at sports? Are you going to do it, around your family who may not be believers? And so anyways, we were throwing out ideas, and my mom used to be a teacher at Cape and Bridge. You probably had her.
She was. Yeah, yep, she was my 8th grade teacher.
So like, towards the last few years of her teaching, she had hosted a Bible study in her class during lunch, and it was student led because teachers aren't supposed to lead it, and they would just come back and take turns leading. And I was like, that's something too. And I said, if you know any of your teachers who you think are Christians, like ask them. The worst they're going to say is no.
Yeah.
And the next day, they went and asked one of their teachers, and their teachers she was like, that's amazing. Like, let me go talk to the principal just to see. And they were like, yes, as long as it's not led by the teacher. And so, JD Smith, which is the resource officer there, like he's been heading that up a lot. And he's like, I have to learn constantly. I have to always grow. And like his church has been donating Bibles because a lot of them don't have Bibles. And that, like, I pray almost every day. I'm like, God, help the gospel to go forth throughout the schools. And there's other avenues, which I'll like share more about it, that he is like opening doors for the gospel to go in these public schools, because sometimes they don't, like I was a teacher. I had students who nobody that lived in their house had a car. And so that was not, they lived close enough to the school that they walked their kid to school or like, eventually walked her to the bus stop and they got the bus. So like, and some parents work on Sundays and the kids aren't able to get to church. So just to have them the availability to learn about God in that way and to find like the hope in Christ in the hard things that they're going through is just, it's incredible. So keep praying over that.
Yes, no, I absolutely love that. And then I love that you say the difference between, middle schoolers and high schoolers, because it is, middle school is such a different transitioning period.
It's an awkward time.
It is. And my youngest daughter, she is in middle school, and to kind of tread lightly on the subject, she was like my main one on fire for God before we had even gotten baptized. So cool. I will truly say that having godly friends really helps, because she did, and she would go to church with one of her friends, when she would stay the night with them sometimes, and she would always be like, Mom, we should go. And of course, at that time, I'm like, oh yeah, we'll go sometime. It's
hard to get in the habit of it.
And I'm just so proud of her for staying strong in her faith. She was out there in the water with us and got baptized. And then there was an incident at the middle school where she's at this year. And again, just to tread lightly on it was just, students wanting to share their faith and not shove it in anybody's face or not be rude about it, because again, that's not how Jesus went about things. And we talked about that. Like, we're not gonna, be mad about it. Like, we want to just be like,
show them grace.
We want to, we want to, show you who Jesus is. We want to do these things. So there were just certain things that had happened, but she stayed strong in her faith the whole time. And we just really made it through all of that. But it's hard when you have somebody that, is a non-believer and just doesn't understand, and then, just wants to make it like really want to push that out of there. But the fact that her and other students just stayed strong in their faith and was like, no, we're allowed to do this.
Is there a Bible study at Cape and Bridge?
Not that I know of right now, but it would
get started up.
Yes, it would be an amazing thing to start something like that, because I have heard of Romney doing that, and
the high school does it. They have like Fellowship of Faith, where it is mainly student led, and I've gone up there and spoke, but like I'm getting more in the I'll just be going once a month because my kids are my main ministry. Like they're 4, 2, and 3 months, right? Or maybe 4 months now. No, he's my third. Is it?
I was about to say it all. Just say it all comes together.
Anyways, he's little. But I don't want like too many things. I am blessed to be able to be with them, so I don't want like too many things to take me away from being like with them in these little years, because I was like, I have the rest of my life to like go back to teaching and doing all that stuff. But I'm very grateful. It's not everybody's calling to like step away from their career. It's not at all. Like you shared that, but I'm thankful that I can do that. So I'm wanting to get into schools and point people to Christ like as much as I can.
I love that, because we do need more of that in the schools. And I love that they do the prayer circles sometimes and stuff like that. I love all of that, because again, there is power in prayer. There really is. And I'm just really proud of her for sticking strong with all that.
That's hard at that age, because you care. Even as adults, we care about what people think about us, and it is hard when people are going to talk bad about us, or like put us down or put our beliefs down. But like, you have to always keep God first in your life and say like, okay, Jesus said in this world you will have troubles, take heart, I've overcome the world. And like he said, you are going to be persecuted for your faith, and that's going to look different. I know people listen in different parts of the world where you are physically persecuted, and like in our part of the world it seems silly like to us, because but it's also hard, like especially at that age when you are treated poorly like for your faith. So like I've just had and God has taught me this in really hard ways, with people like really being unkind when I didn't do anything, and I'm just like, okay, if I've put God first in my life, if I'm serving him, if I'm doing what he's called me to do, people aren't going to be nice at times, and it is what it is. Like but sometimes it affects me worse than others, right? The devil's really good about I know one way that he targets me is just like getting in my head. The first time that I went, like this past time, to the middle school, it's usually when there's big things coming up, like we have a youth retreat, and like whenever all that stuff, like a lot of the leaders, we experience spiritual warfare leading up to that. And the day before going to the middle school, like I haven't struggled with like serious depression or anxiety or anything. Like I've had the baby blues like after having my third, but it was like over and over again, something that somebody said flippantly and kind of joking, and I was like, I just was crying about it. And finally I felt dumb about it, but I opened up to my husband finally, and I was like, this is what I'm struggling with, because this comment had been said a couple times by somebody that I really look up to, and it was a funny thing. I laughed about it, and other people laughed about it, and then after I'm like, is that how people see me? And he's like, who cares if it is? Like, if you're being obedient, like, it's fine. And then the next day, I literally laughed about it. I was like, I cannot believe I care. But in that moment, like, it was the devil over and over and over again, just like putting those thoughts in my mind. So like, be aware of that. Be aware of the spiritual warfare that is happening. So pray against that for you, for your loved ones, because like over your kids, because they're gonna face that, because the devil hates when people find their hope in Jesus. He hates the transformation that comes. But yeah, just stay strong and reach out to us for prayer. If you struggled with like depression or anxiety or anything, like, if you don't mind, like, reach out to her, like on Facebook or wherever. And just so she can give you that encouragement. And y'all look up verses. Just get the Bible app. It's just Holy Bible. It's a free app on your phone, and you can look at the search bar and type in anxiety. And there's a bunch of studies on it, but also it will show you just so many verses on anxiety that you can write down, say over yourself, memorize, like just spend that time, and then speak like encouragement over others, because you never know what people are going through. And when you do react in a wrong way, like you talked about your son, like we all react in wrong ways, say like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, like that was not showing you Christ well, and they might forgive you. They might be like, see how, like, I don't know.
One of the great things with that was too, is that he said after he had prayed again and he said he felt better, that wasn't the end of it. He had went back in. He said, I did apologize to everybody for how I acted. And that takes a lot, especially for a teenager. Shoot, for anybody.
Yeah.
But he was able to do that. And then he had said, Mom, and just so you know, he's like, I feel like I need to go up to the altar and be prayed over at church on Sunday.
Wow.
And
that
for
takes
that,
humility.
for that to come out, I'm like, what did you really say or do? But no, it was just him in that moment, me having them in church, them even knowing what the altar is, like the fact that he knew that he just needed, he just needed that extra prayer. And that's why I just keep saying, prayer is so important, because he was led to do that. And I never mentioned anything else about it. That was on the Friday. We get to church on Sunday, and we're just in the middle of worship. Like, we're just, we're singing along, and he just grabs my arm and he says, Mom, he said, I need to go to the altar now. And I was seriously like, are you sure you want to go right now? I'm like, we can wait till the end, when they usually do an altar call. And he said to me, he looked me straight in my eyes and said, no, Mom, he said, he's telling me to go now.
That's amazing.
So,
I'm sure that encouraged so many people to see him do that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Not care what people thought.
Yep, he just grabbed my hand and took me up with him. And, like I said, he knew not to wait. Like he said, he is telling me to go now. And we did. And,
That's
we did that. And I just love that there, things like that aren't always going to happen. But the fact that you just keep staying strong in everything, you keep praying, you keep doing everything, like things like that do keep happening more often than not. Again, it's not every day is not going to be, a great story like that, but I'm getting more stories from my kids. I'm getting more, things happening where I'm like, that's a God moment. That was God. Like, nothing's luck, nothing's that, like, it's God. And the way that he is just moving, I just pray that doesn't stop, because you can be on fire and you can be on that, high, but it is your obedience, and it is, how you follow with that. And that you're going to have days where you struggle, and, you're better equipped to handle those when you start reading more, when you start going to church, and it's just brought the peace. It's brought such a sense of peace, and just that, even though I've done all these bad things, or I've done, this, I went through this, I was, asking God, why me? Like, now I know God was like, why you? Because you have a higher calling now. Like, you are to do something more for me, and I needed you to go through these things.
And think about, rather than
so I could pull you out.
Yeah, like rather than saying why me, say like, well, why not me?
Exactly, and that's that's how I feel now, because again, when I think of all the bad things, the trials and everything, I'm like, he really put me to the test and I went through everything I did because he wanted to show me that I was stronger than I really thought I was. And now that, again, I'm understanding everything in a new light, I'm just like, wow, thank you, God, for choosing me to be the one that has to go through these certain things. And thank you for blessing me with 4 kids, which I know some people are like, oh my gosh, 4 sometimes, but no, they are the light of my life, and I want them to be the best people they can be. And I feel like now that we've, taken this step and taken this journey, I can just only hope that, from here on out, we just keep going strong with it. And hopefully when they're in situations, they'll be able to handle it better, because, they know Jesus a little better now. Yeah. So I'm just really, really hoping that my story, in a way, really can just shape not only them, but just help anybody, who may be struggling.
I'm confident in that. Yeah. And like I said before, like, babies are always a blessing, no matter how they come into the world. And like, it just made me think when you said that, like, the other night, like, our baby, put a show on for our older two, and I literally have to have our younger one like in the bathroom with me while I shower, like in a seat, so you know, because I'm not leaving it out here with our 2-year-old. But they're great brothers and sisters. They really take good care of him. But he was screaming the entire time I was getting a shower. And I told my husband, I was like, it was great. He screamed the whole time. I'm glad I got a little bit of quiet. And he was like, I know, babe, but like some people never get to experience that, and so and that just really put things into perspective too. Like I should be grateful for as hard as it is for my baby screaming, because I know not everybody does get that gift. And you talked about struggling with infertility, so and it can look like, if you do struggle with infertility, even consider adoption or fostering, and that can be a route to serve kiddos in that way and to start your family. So so we didn't even get to most of the questions, but I feel like we touched on most of it. And I always pray before that the Holy Spirit will speak to us and through us. So I really feel like he guided and directed the conversation in ways we didn't necessarily plan, but it's really cool how he works in those ways. So the last question, so how can our listeners be praying over you?
I guess I could really just say to just pray that God just keeps moving through me. That's honestly one of the things I pray about every night anymore now. I'm just just please just keep moving through me, how he wants me to shine my light for everybody. If somebody's struggling with something, let me be the one that can help them. Again, I'm always wanting to help others, but also just to pray for me too, because we're gonna have those bad days and everything, and we could feel like we're gonna on a spiral. But I just pray that, and everybody pray that I could just keep strong in my faith and just keep moving forward, and just for my family, and that we just keep doing what we need to do, because this world's hard to live in these days, and especially when you're believers and everything. I just just pray that he just keeps moving through me.
Let me pray for us. God, we love you, and we're so thankful for Kierstin, just her testimony and how you've worked in incredible ways in and through her life. I just pray that you will rebuke any spiritual warfare that may come her way. I pray over her and Tyler and her kids, that you'll just use them in mighty ways to be a light in the world for you. I pray that they will always be bold in their faith in a loving way, and you will just give them so much strength and focus in doing that. I pray that they would just be able to find intentional time to spend with you every day in the busyness of life, and just help them to be able to slow down enough to take the time to listen to people's story and pray with people and point them back to you. And I pray the same exact thing over everyone listening as well. God, we thank you for loving us and being good Father to us, and just pursuing us even in our darkest times. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed that episode with Kierstin. I know I did. I love how open and honest she was about talking about the hard things that she's walked through, like anxiety and depression, and just a hard walk in her past. And I just pray, if you are somebody who has experienced anxiety or depression, that you will not do that alone, that you will reach out to somebody, reach out to us, reach out to a friend or a family member or a local church. And if you know somebody in your life that's really struggling in that way, do not let them do it alone. Just set aside your busy schedule, go visit them, take them a meal, let them know that you're praying over them. Just don't let them stay isolated in that. And also remember, you're never too far gone to have a deep relationship with God. And just put God first in your life and focus on your relationship with God before your relationship with everybody else around you, even your kids who are going to be needy if you're a parent, even your spouse. God has to be first, and people will see that transformation and want that for themselves truly. And make it a relationship with God, like we talked about. Dive into his word. That is a way to hear from him. It is literally God's word. Spend time in prayer with him. Get a part of a local church. don't walk through this life alone, and don't try to have that relationship with God. Yes, have it alone, but also have it with others that can encourage you and build you up in your faith and in your walk and hold you accountable. And then don't let church be an inconvenience either. I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I want to sleep in, like we talked about, or, oh, we're busy, or, oh, that's my only day to stay home. Like, I get that, but it is going to help you grow so much. It's going to bring so much life and joy into your life when you're not just trying to do it alone or letting Sunday be just another day to get stuff done. So I really hope that this conversation encourages you. Reach out to Kierstin, tell her thank you for being on. And if you are someone who feels led to share your testimony, just don't hesitate to reach out about that. And I'm really excited for just the upcoming episodes to come. And just as always, reach out if there's any way that we can be praying over you. And thank you so much for your all support. And I just pray that this will always help point you back to Christ and build your relationship with Him. All right, guys, have a great day.